October 23, 1951, started as another routine bombing run until 8 B-29s crossed into North Korea and everything changed. In 90 seconds, a swarm of Soviet MiG-15s turned the world's most feared bomber into flying wreckage, killing or capturing over 55 crew members and sending 5 crippled planes limping home. How did the mighty B-29 become a death trap? And what did those crews face in the chaos that followed? The answer reveals a nightmare history you were never taught. The first MiGs dropped from the sun with no warning. 8 B-29s, locked in formation, pushed toward Namsi airfield, their engines droning steady at 25,000 feet. Suddenly, the intercom crackles. Bandits 12 o'clock high, but the words barely register before cannon fire rips through the lead bomber. 1 second, the sky is clear. The next fire pours from an engine nacelle, black smoke streaming behind a spiraling wing. Gunners swing their turrets, trying to track blurs that appear and vanish in the blink of an eye. MiGs slash through the formation at closing speeds over 900 miles per hour. Each gunner has maybe 3 seconds, no more, to squeeze off a burst before the jets are gone. The 50 caliber tracers arc harmlessly behind, outpaced by the jet's momentum. A direct hit erupts in the bomb bay of Baker 2. Flames engulf the fuselage, and the tail section shears away. Crewmen scramble for parachutes, but there is almost no time. Another B-29 pitches downward, both wings on fire. Shrapnel from a 37mm shell tears through the radio compartment, silencing the intercom. 5 bombers stagger, riddled with holes, engines coughing, hydraulic fluid spraying across the cockpit glass. The formation shatters. Calls for help mix with shouted bearings. MiG at 6, MiG at 3, as the sky fills with debris and burning fuel. In less than 90 seconds, 3 super fortresses are gone. The rest are scattered, wounded, and running for home. Each crewman left with the sound of exploding metal and the knowledge that survival came down to luck and seconds. At Kadena Air Base, the first emergency calls broke the morning silence before the bombers even touched down. 5 B-29s limped back across the East China Sea, engines trailing oil, control surfaces barely responding. Ground crews lined the runway, counting holes in fuselages and praying for wheels to lock before the battered planes skidded to a stop. 2 aircraft declared Mayday over the radio, reporting wounded on board and fuel streaming from ruptured tanks. Flight surgeons and ambulance teams waited by the tarmac, bracing for what would roll through the haze. As hatches opened, the scene was grim. Crewmen staggered out, some with uniforms soaked in blood, others silent and hollow-eyed. A navigator from Baker 3 was carried out on a stretcher, his oxygen mask still strapped to his face. Radio operators, hands shaking, clutched logbooks with pages torn and stained. Inside the debriefing rooms, wing leaders tried to make sense of the numbers. 3 bombers lost over Namsi, never to return. 5 more so badly damaged they would never fly again. The final tally, more than 55 men killed, wounded, or missing in a single mission. Some names were scratched off chalkboards in silence, others marked as prisoners, fate unknown. Field telegrams from Korea reported debris fields scattered across rice paddies and mountains north of the Yalu. Messages from Kimpo Air Base listed emergency landings, with crews too shaken to speak. In the aftermath, the air hung heavy with questions and grief. The cost was immediate and personal. No one in the briefing hall that day could ignore the empty chairs or the smell of burnt hydraulic fluid still clinging to flight suits. A B-29 superfortress designed for the skies of 1945 found itself outmatched above Korea. Its maximum speed, just 350 miles per hour, meant it lumbered through the thin air, a predictable shape against the horizon. 30,000 feet up, the crew watched for threats. But the real danger came from above and behind, where the MiG-15s ruled. Soviet-built jets streaked in at 670 miles per hour, closing the gap in seconds. The difference in altitude and speed was more than a number on a chart. It was the difference between having a fighting chance and being a target. The MiG-15's 37mm cannon could tear through a bomber's wing or engine with a single hit. Each shell, nearly the size of a soda bottle, carried enough explosive to turn a pressurized cabin into a death trap. The B-29's own defenses, 1250 caliber machine guns, had been deadly against propeller planes, but against swept-wing jets, they were almost useless. Gunners had 2, maybe 3 seconds to track a MiG as it flashed through their sights, the combined closing speed topping 900 miles per hour. In that moment, every calculation came down to instinct and luck. On the gunner's intercom, voices counted down ranges and angles, but the math felt impossible. A burst of 50 caliber fire often passed harmlessly behind the jet, while the MiG's cannons found their mark with frightening regularity. The odds were plain. The B-29 was built for a different war, and in these skies, survival was measured in seconds. Far East Air Force's statisticians, hunched over casualty reports in late October 1951, faced arithmetic that could not be ignored. The first confirmed encounter with MiG-15s had come nearly a year earlier on November 1, 1950, when Soviet-built jets attacked UN fighters near the Yalu River. At the time, B-29s still operated as if Korea were a replay of World War II, flying daylight missions confident in their formations and firepower. But after Namsi, the numbers told a different story. Losses from a single raid were not an outlier. They were a warning. Bomber Command's own memos projected loss rates of 12 to 15% per daylight mission. In practical terms, that meant a squadron could be wiped out in just 7 sorties. The math was simple and brutal. With each B-29 carrying 11 men, a single day's losses erased years of training and experience. Commanders weighed the cost against the reality that no new bomber could replace the Superfortress for years. The B-47 Stratojet was still on drawing boards. The B-52 was years from its first flight. On the strength of these projections, the Far East Air Forces issued an order in late October 1951 that all future B-29 missions over North Korea would be flown at night. The era of daylight bombing was over. The decision saved aircraft, but it forced crews into a new kind of nightmare, one that would unfold in darkness under the glare of searchlights and the thunder of anti-aircraft guns. Inside the blacked-out fuselage, the navigator bends over a glowing Shorin short-range navigation radar screen, tracing the bomber's path toward the target. Every crewman feels the tension as the aircraft locks onto its assigned corridor, an invisible line across enemy territory that never changes, night after night. The flight engineer checks dials, listening for the smallest change in engine pitch, knowing that a single shell could turn the plane into a fireball. Outside, the world is pitch dark until, without warning, searchlights snap on and sweep the sky. When beams cross over the bomber, the cockpit glows white and the crew feels exposed, waiting for the shudder of flak. One navigator later described it as being naked on a stage, knowing every gun on the ground is aiming for you. In those moments, the darkness offers no safety, only a new kind of fear. Captured airmen faced a new ordeal in North Korean prison camps. More than 30 B-29 crew members died in captivity, not from wounds but from starvation, torture, and relentless interrogation. Survivors later describe months in solitary confinement, forced to endure endless re-education sessions and pressured to sign propaganda statements. These experiences left scars that lasted long after their return, shaping how the Air Force prepared future crews for survival and resistance. The harsh lessons learned in Korean prison camps became the foundation for the SERE program, training that would teach airmen to endure, evade, resist, and escape if captured. The cost of the B-29 campaign can be measured in numbers as well as suffering. Over 21,000 sorties were flown, dropping 160,000 tons of bombs, more than had been dropped on Japan in World War II. Official records count 34 bombers lost to enemy fighters, 16 to anti-aircraft fire, and over 100 written off from damage. The urgent need for a new generation of bombers became clear. The B-47 Stratojet and B-52 Stratofortress were rushed into development, their designs shaped by the hard lessons learned over Korea. The sacrifice of these crews forced a reckoning, changing the future of American air power. Today, bomber crews still face the challenge of flying into hostile skies, shaped by rapid technological change. The lessons from Korea about vulnerability, sacrifice, and adaptation remain urgent as new threats emerge. The courage of those crews echoes every time a mission launches into the unknown. Share your thoughts below.